Hello, I'm Dave Page. Along with photographer Jeff Kruger, I put together F. Scott Fitzgerald in Minnesota, the author and his friends at home. The book is a compendium of sites throughout Minnesota associated with the author of this site of paradise, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. While the vast majority of homes and businesses in the book are still standing, a few no longer are with us, including the duplex at 8385 Virginia Street, which was raised in 1927 without any kind of photographic record. The house was built by Charles Noyes, who was a partner in a Minnesota pharmaceutical firm. His son, Larry, attended Hill School with Joe McKibbin II. During Fitzgerald's teenage years, the McKibbins lived in the duplex at 83 Virginia, just one house off Summit Avenue, St. Paul's Show Street. The patriarch of the family, Joe McKibbin Sr., owned the furrier McKibbon, Driscoll, and Dorsey. In 1911, his daughter Allison married the father of Fitzgerald's lifelong friends, Donald and Alita Bigelow. That meant that Allison's brother, Joe McKibbin II, who was 11 years younger than Allison but just a few years older than Fitzgerald, became Donald and Alita's stepuncle. Soon after this publicity photo was taken for the premiere of Fitzgerald's play The Coward, the young author arrived in Princeton for the beginning of his freshman year in September 1913. Fitzgerald dreamt of becoming a football hero. One day, Fitzgerald was visiting another St. Paul friend, Norris Jackson, who would also eventually be employed in St. Paul's fur business, at his room at 13 Little Hall. While he and Norris were socializing, Joe McKibbin II arrived with a friend. Norris recalled that Joe suggested the foursome go for a stroll. "We walked down through the campus and along a canal, a nice sort of place to walk," Jackson told an interviewer in 1982. Fitzgerald was acting a bit odd, though. According to Jackson, he sort of skipped around, knocking apples off trees and things like that. A day or two later, Fitzgerald burst into Jackson's room and asked, "Do you know who that was we were with on Sunday?" Jackson said yes, it was Joe McKibbin. "But do you know who the senior was?" Fitzgerald asked excitedly. Jackson responded affirmatively. "Well," Fitzgerald said in a disgusted manner, "he's the captain of the football team, and I acted like a damn fool." McKibbin's friend was Amory Baker, a real-life football hero and the namesake of college hockey's equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. Fitzgerald noted the meeting in his ledger, but more importantly, in his novel This Side of Paradise, Fitzgerald presents an admiring snapshot of Baker as Allenby, the football captain who leads a group of men singing "Going Back to Nassau Hall." "Now far down the shadowy line of University Place," wrote Fitzgerald in This Side of Paradise, "a white-clad phalanx broke the gloom, and marching figures, white-shirted, white-trousered, swung rhythmically up the street, with linked arms and heads thrown back singing. Amory closed his eyes as the ghostly procession drew near. The song soared so high that all dropped out except the tenors, who bore the melody triumphantly past the danger point and relinquished it to the fantastic chorus. Then Amory opened his eyes, half afraid that sight would spoil the rich illusion of harmony. He sighed eagerly. There at the head of the white platoon marched Allenby, the football captain, slim and defiant, as if aware that this year the hopes of the college rested on him, that his 160 pounds were expected to dodge to victory through the heavy blue and crimson lines. The 5'9" Baker apparently did like to sing, but he weighed 165 pounds, not the 160 Fitzgerald credits him with in the novel. Not coincidentally, Fitzgerald named the hero of his novel Amory Blaine, an obvious homage to Hobart, Hobey, Amory Baker. McKibbin, Jackson, and Fitzgerald continue to cross paths at Princeton. At one meeting, Fitzgerald told his two friends, quote, that he wanted 5 good principles to live up to, another sentiment echoed in this side of paradise. Like Fitzgerald, Joe McKibbin II joined the armed services during World War I. In 1923, McKibbin met Dorothy Ann Scarrett in Dellwood, Minnesota, whose yacht club had hosted several of Fitzgerald's plays, including The Coward. The offspring of a well-to-do Kansas City family, Scarrett was a 1990 graduate of Smith College. Joe and Dorothy planned to marry, but broke their engagement in 1925 when she contracted tuberculosis, a disease which also afflicted Fitzgerald. She went for a cure to a sanitarium near Santa Fe. After 11 months, she recovered. She and Joe were married in 1927 and settled in St. Paul, where Joe worked for his father at the Furrier. Sadly, Joe McKibbin II died from Hodgkin's disease in 1931, leaving Dorothy with an 11-month-old son. Having enjoyed the time she spent in the Southwest, Dorothy returned to Santa Fe and got a job with Robert Oppenheimer. She became famous as the gatekeeper to Los Alamos. Fitzgerald was noted for turning actual events into vivid fiction, and a chance meeting instigated by Joe McKibbin II gave Fitzgerald the excuse to incorporate one of America's most famous athletes into his first novel.